Welcome to An Unconventional Life, a podcast where we share stories about the crazy 1% out there who earned their doctoral degrees and then went on to use them in crazy, cool, unique, and unconventional ways. Here's your host, astrophysicist turned teacher, author, dissertation coach, and more, Dr. Russell Strickland.
Hi, this is Dr. Russell Strickland here, host of An Unconventional Life podcast, where I feature stories from the unconventional 1% who not only earned their doctoral degrees, but went on to leverage them in all sorts of strange, exciting, cool, and unconventional ways throughout their careers. I have with me today Dr. Sandra Ingram, and I'd like to let you know that Dr. Ingram has worked with me as a student, a doctoral student with dissertation done. She's actually had feet on both sides of the educational aisle, so to speak. She's worked as a dean of sophomore students at a major university here in our state, but has also served as a mentor, as a minister. When I talk about an unconventional life, we're going to have a fun time here speaking with Dr. Ingram. Dr. Ingram, welcome, and thank you for joining us here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Well, I want to just very briefly give our sponsorship message, and this episode is brought to you by Dissertation Done. And as I mentioned, Dr. Ingram is familiar. At Dissertation Done, we help you get your dissertation done a lot faster than you would on your own. We can help you from the beginning of the process to the end. I like to say from here to graduation, wherever that might be. In Dr. Ingram's case, we help with data analysis and some things after that. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But if you are a doctoral student who's struggling with the dissertation process, if you're in education, nursing, business, religion, psychology, anywhere where you're studying people in a data-driven way, our process is set up just precisely for you. So reach out to us at dissertationdone.com, and we'll like to help you get your dissertation done and get your life back. Dr. Ingram, when we first met, you were kind of neck deep in trying to get your dissertation finished. You had your proposal approved, and then kind of there was a snag. You had everything all set up, and they pulled the rug out from under your feet. You want to tell folks about that? And the reason why we're setting up this story, by the way, is Dr. Ingram has a good story here, a happy story. She finished. It's Dr. Ingram. Okay. But I want you guys to realize that a lot of folks have trouble with the dissertation process, and hearing the real deal, the true stories from folks who've been through it, not only who had difficulties, but were able to overcome those difficulties and earn their degree is very inspiring. So Dr. Ingram's story is very inspiring. And why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got your proposal approved and then they kind of pulled the rug out from under your feet?
All right. Thank you. First, I would like to say that working on a dissertation is a process, and I would like everyone to know that when I started my dissertation, I was in my late 50s, so that shouldn't deter anyone.
Absolutely.
So after I started and got my proposal approved, I ran into snags with my data. I was promised data from a particular school district, and I waited for that data for over a year, and it did not materialize. And at the end of the year, I was told that my research was not a good fit for their school. So I had to go back and meet with my mentor, and we had to try to decide what was going to be done. Right. And I would just like to say that having a good mentor is something that you really want to have. And I ran into snags with my mentor. And so I was her first mentee. And so there were a lot of questions that I had that I didn't get answers for. Yeah. And it slowed up my progress.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. When you're working on your first dissertation, it would be nice if the person you're working with, it wasn't their first dissertation too.
Yes, it would be nice for it to be someone who had some experience. Absolutely. And I would have to say, after I, requested a new mentor, and that took a little while for me to get one, but I did, and he was awesome.
Good.
So the right mentor can propel you forth quickly. And but I would like to say, when I was, and I don't even know if Dr. Strickland knows this, one day I was on the internet, and I was looking for a way to get this dissertation done because I was stuck, and I was asking my mentor and I wasn't getting answers and I didn't know what to do. And at those points you get frustrated,
Right.
and you throw your hands up and you say, what to do? I don't know. And I feel like quitting, but you don't quit. You have to hang in there. Number one, you've put too much time and effort in it at this point. And so, yes. And so, and it came up and I saw dissertation done. I went like, oh, okay, can this person really help me to get this dissertation done? So I did click on his site, and fortunately for me, I got to meet him, and he propelled me forward also a lot with clarity on what I'm doing. When you're working on a dissertation and you're doing it online, and sometimes you really have to get it for yourself, because a lot of times there's no one to explain it to you. Right. So, but which is working on a doctoral degree, that's what you learn to do. So after my new mentor worked with me to find a place to get some data, then I said, okay. And so I could continue writing. And another thing I would say with committee members and a mentor that didn't really know how to lead, that my feedback was not very good. My feedback would be things like you left a period at the end of the sentence, or you didn't put a comma. So there was no meat.
Right.
Or directions as to where I should go. And
that's a great point, Dr. Ingram, is that if you as a doctoral student are receiving feedback and it's all about grammar and mechanics and things like that, your mentor, sorry, I'm going to offend some people, I don't care, it's the truth, they're being lazy. It's the easiest thing in the world to go through and honestly have Microsoft Word put a little underline saying, hey, there's a comma that shouldn't be here, or there's a comma missing here. Right. And you can just put a note there saying, hey, Microsoft Word told me that you spelled something wrong. Laziest thing in the world for a mentor to do. The hard part is making sure that you've got the framework in place, making sure that you've got a foundation, you've got a structure, you've got an interesting problem that is backed up by your literature. And all of these things, that's the tough part. And unfortunately, if you do see that your mentor is focusing on the superficial, the grammar and things like that very early on in the process, it is a warning sign to at least have a talk with that mentor and maybe start looking to see if you can get someone else in there, because that's not a good start to a relationship.
No, it's not. And, and I'll have to say the person was very nice. Mm-hmm. They just didn't know. Yeah. And I guess they were doing the best they could with that, but that didn't help me because it was my dime and my money. Right. and
your time and you want it more than anybody else does. That's always going to be the case. You can have the best mentor in the world. It's still going to be more important to you than anybody else. Absolutely. You can come work with us at Dissertation Done. As much as I hate to say it, it's going to mean more to you than it will be to me. Yeah. Well, I just can't be any other way.
Well, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. But after I found a resource to get my data, then I contacted you, and Dr. Strickland would help me to do that. But we even ran into snags with where I got my data from. It had to be encrypted. It had to be on one computer. And unfortunately, he had to travel from Durham to where I stayed. For us to even go over things, because I could not put it on a disk and I could not email it to him. So there are all kinds of problems. But thankfully, I think we just did that one time.
I believe so. But this underlies a really important thing that we found in working with students over the years. Getting your data, like getting possession of your data, collecting your data and analyzing your data, it's the last hurdle to graduation. Yes. There are other things you're going to have to do. There's work. It's going to take time. You're going to have little bumps in the road, but you can get through all of that. But absolutely, as you recognize, you got stuck for a year trying to get your data after you had a plan in place. It was all there. It was agreed to. Right. And they just backed out on you.
Yes, they did. And I will tell you, this school's in another district about an hour and a half away, and I even drove there and met with them and talked with them.
Tried to just get that.
Well, and they told me, this was at the beginning, they told me, yes, you can have this data. And so we had several, and then when they told me that they couldn't give it to me, I really sent them back every email
Right.
that they had sent me.
What we talked about. This is what we agreed.
Yes, saying that they would do it. But what happened, I don't know. So after that point, another thing was, okay, if I couldn't get the data I needed to change my proposal topic.
A little or a lot, yeah.
No, yes, and that would have taken a lot. As a matter of fact, that would have meant going from a PhD program to an EDD program, which I didn't have a problem with that, but what it meant was going back and taking more classwork, and that was not about to happen.
Right, I understand.
Yes, so I wasn't going back into the class to do that. I had finished that. I had 2 years of classwork. That was enough. And so, so we decided my new mentor sort of helped me figure out and got the approval of me to change some things in the dissertation. I had to add some things in and take some other things out, but at least I didn't have to rewrite the whole thing, which was
a blessing, because that's a lot. You know, those of you who are working through your proposal, you can imagine having gotten that approval and having gotten IRB to say yes.
Yes.
And then thinking about, okay, now I'm going to go back to before those points. That's not, not a happy thought at all. So I'm glad that you were able to find that data, that you were able to find us, and that we could help you get it analyzed.
Absolutely.
Because that was important. But then after that, things went relatively quickly and relatively smoothly, right?
Yes. So with my new mentor, what we did after we got the data, within, I don't know, 6 months or less, we were done.
Yeah. I think less than that. It might have
been 3 months.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
I think it was about 3 months, but I remember one night crying and just saying, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm giving up. I'm stopping. I'm quitting. This is not worth it. And then I had a dream. And in the dream, I was at graduation with my cap and gown on. So there you go.
There you go.
So I said, okay, well, maybe I can hold out a little while longer, because it took me, 7 years to do this?
Altogether.
And that's a long time. Yeah. That's a long time of your life.
But you know, Dr. Ingram, there's no quitting you. So
no, I'm afraid
that wasn't going to happen. And that's so many of the folks we talk to as well. They come and they say, I'm frustrated. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what I'm going to do yet.
Yes.
But I know I'm not going to quit.
That's right.
So
that was not an option.
Yeah, it's who you are. You hit those moments of weakness and despair, and you're like, oh, what am I going to do? But yeah, quitting is just, there's too much you've invested in it. It's part of your identity. Right. So many people have think of themselves as a doctor before they ever get that degree, and this is just the culmination of that realization for them.
Yes, yes. And I will tell you, the thought of having to pay that money back for school and didn't have anything to show for it, no, that just could never happen.
Every single month you have that little reminder, and it's not a little reminder, a big reminder.
I know, it's a pretty big reminder.
All right. So as folks can see, the process is not always easy. It's not always straightforward. I hope, I was able to play some small part in getting you through the end of that process.
Yes.
But the idea here is that even when you're facing difficulty, you can absolutely, totally overcome it. And you need to keep going. Don't quit.
Yes.
Because you have done so many interesting and cool things since you graduated. And I want to talk more about that. Okay. Because as I mentioned, you are a minister, and I know that you're working on a book right now. You've worked in education. You did this really cool thing for a while while you were sort of kind of teaching in China. I'd like you to tell folks about that. Where do you want to start? Because there have been a lot of cool things you've been up to. Okay,
well, first I would like to say, after I retired, and I said, okay, so what am I going to do now? Because, I still have a lot of energy and work in me and things to do. So I applied to teach English to students in China.
Very cool.
And so did that, and that was very interesting and very rewarding. And I would tell you, to get qualified to teach the students is a process also.
Yeah.
And so after the qualification, and your salary depends on your education, your background and things. So, you know, the dissertation came in handy.
Having that PhD helps, but
Yes.
it helped in another way, which people might not realize. Tell me, you said that once you got out there, you're kind of on a website and people are getting to pick
Yes.
who they want to be the teacher.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teachers out there. So
Yes.
how were you able to stand out?
Well, I'll tell you, the way the programs are set up, you can do videos. You can write down everything, your accomplishments, and the parent sees that.
Yep.
And the parents look at that, but you have to make videos to impress the students to like you.
As well. Okay.
Yes. So it's a combination of parents and students. And of course, the parents are always going to want the best. And they look at, because I had many years in education, about 20 years where I've taught at the middle school, high school, and then college. And so I've had a lot of different teaching experience in even technical community college.
Right.
So that all those things, and then having the dissertation in curriculum and instruction also helped.
You know, those Chinese tiger moms wanted to go out bragging that my kid is getting taught English by an American doctor, right?
Yes, yes. So all those things were absolutely
really
a
helped.
plus. It was absolutely a plus. And with doing that, I also am writing a book.
Okay.
Yes, and this book is a lot different from the dissertation, but it is a book, but the processes are the same in a lot of ways. So I am happy about that, without just learning the process of getting through that, because getting through the dissertation of that book helped me to realize that I can write another book. Right. And get through that process also.
And this one is a lot easier now, right? Because you don't have people over your shoulder telling you what they don't like. Now you're writing for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And it makes a big difference. I still have to research. I still have to work. I still have to read. But not that the dissertation wasn't a pleasure, but this is a different kind of pleasure.
Right.
That,
I know the book's not done yet, so you may want to hold back and not tell everybody, but would you like to share what this is about?
Sure.
Okay.
This book, I was writing, I had started to write a book on prayer, but what I realized that, and I'm still going to complete that book, but out of that book is coming, my first book is called Before You Pray Again. And it's the things that you have not thought about to get your prayers answered. You had that question about why aren't my prayers answered? So it answers a lot of questions. And I did go and research questions that people wanted the answers to.
Very nice.
To include, because books should always be to help somebody else and not necessarily about you, but what you can give to help somebody else. And I also started up a little, I call it Creative Curriculums, which is a business that I'm going to start. And that includes going around to the different schools, high schools, because at in my school, I also work with teachers in education, and I supervise teachers. So a lot of the principals want people that have worked with new teachers and to help them. So I had gotten some feedback on that. And so I will be starting it back up whenever Mr. and Mrs. COVID decide to go home.
Decided to take a break. What about when you talk about the new teachers, are there some common issues or concerns or problems that they face that you've seen in working with them?
Yes. The basic thing with a new teacher is that it's really overwhelming, and to learn how to organize. And it's not just about your work and what you have to do, because that part they know well, but you have to learn how to deal with students. And that's a different, and so a lot of young people have not had a lot of life experience, because it is up to you to have control in your classroom.
True.
So in order to help teachers to understand how to understand their students and what they are doing, and I have background in alternative school. I have a background, I've worked with emotionally disturbed students, and plus, and with schools, of course, just regular students. So there's a lot of different areas I can cover. But usually with new teachers is how to get it all done. Yeah.
I remember I was always pretty good to my teachers when I was in grade school, but I do remember we got a teacher, a science teacher when I was in 9th grade, and she did not know how to control a classroom. She did not have any sense of confidence.
Yeah.
And I have to say we kind of took advantage of that.
Well,
even though I was always pretty nice to my teachers.
What I always say is you can't blame kids for being smart, okay? You just have to try to be a little smarter. So we're not going to hold it against them because they're smart. I'm just trying to be a little smarter. So there's different avenues and different things you can do to head off some things. Right. And then before it starts, and if it gets to where it's already started, what to do to avert some of the things, because you will be challenged. I tell you, I've had some things said to me, even like, I'm going to kill you today.
Ooh.
But but you know what?
You want to hear that when you go to work?
No, but I always tell my students this: every day I come to school, and if I come, I'm not scared of you.
Yeah.
So if I'm here, I'm not scared. But my thing was, and I try to teach other teachers is that sometimes you can diffuse a lot of things with just humor.
Right.
And so instead of just you getting all upset and go, you just do humor. So what I told the student was, I said, "What's today?" And he said, "Wednesday." I said, "Okay." So I said, 2 things will happen today. I said, if you shoot me and kill me, I'll go to heaven. And if you shoot me and don't kill me, I'm going to Bible study tonight. So can you please sit down and do your work? And so he was like, and they just look at me like, what? Are you crazy? Then they go, okay, well, okay, I can see I'm not going to scare her. So it's just a little humor thing. I just try to diffuse everything with, but that was because I was mature.
Right.
And a lot of times when you're just starting out, and some of the teachers are 5'4", and I taught high school, so the kids can be 6 foot, and so it can be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
So.
No, I remember my daughter on her last. She's always been a little on the tall side, and on her last day of elementary school, 5th grade, where they went to school, we were able to get back and take her that morning to see every one of her teachers.
Yes.
Which was really cool. Not all the teachers stick around for that long. So she had 6 years of teachers. We were able to go see every one of them. And I think she was taller than every one of them. Too.
Yes.
But it was a good experience to get to do that. So do you have any other stories of things that teachers are having trouble with or struggling? Any specific incidents you can remember that you've helped someone with?
Well, my other thing, because I was a science teacher, and so we always had to take, even when I worked at a school with students with disabilities, they started the end of course test in physical science. That year, I got extremely sick. And I was out of work for like 3 months. Ooh. But I found a way, and this is what I try to teach teachers. You have to find a way to teach students that are, I call them shortcuts, so that they can learn what they need to. like if you're going to do a Punnett square and they gave you a gray dog and a white dog and whatever, and you should be able to teach them how to look at that and say that's going to be a 2 to 42, and how to do that process after you've taught them the basics.
Right.
And so I had to learn how to teach and get them to understand what was going on. But one thing I will always say, I was a rebel in the classroom, and I always taught holistically.
Okay.
I never skipped. I'm never going to teach to a test.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm always going to teach what you need to know, because if you get the basics, then we can build, and I can show you how to do other things. So,
which is one of the things I really liked about math and science as I was growing up, is that in history or an English class, if you learned one thing, you knew one thing. But in math or science,
yes,
you could take that one thing, and it was like a tool, and you could use it all over the place. You got a screwdriver, and all of a sudden you start looking around at all these screws there are, and you get a saw, and you start seeing all this wood you can cut. And it was really great to be able to take something that someone had taught me and then figure out all the places that I can use it. Really
absolutely. Cool. When I taught physical science also at the university level, so I had a lot of athletes. So if I wanted to teach torque or whatever, I use ice skaters. Or force and mass, I use a football. I said, every football player here is a genius. How do you figure out with how much this ball is weighing, the force you're going to put on that ball to get it all the way down the field? I said, that's a genius. You're a genius. And they would go like, I never thought about it that way. Am I smart? Lord, yes, you're smart. But you have to wake up their mind and their curiosity, and you have to do things different. Yeah. And you cannot, it is no longer, I used to say, it's like talk. We can't do that.
Yeah. You got to keep them engaged. You got to have things that they do, things that they're working on. They have to learn as much as you're teaching.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the other things I did was we had a chapter on atomic physics, and everybody always had a hard time. So what I did was I broke down each section. So I explained to the students that everybody has a section that you have to teach. Now, how you teach it is going to be important, because I'm not going to teach this chapter.
Yeah.
So it's all on you. So you have to know your one part. But as everybody else teaches, you have to take notes and ask them questions. And so I was always there to, if they got something off for a little bit. But this was a surprising thing. When they came to class for their turn to teach, the guys had on dress pants and a tie, and the girls wore a dress.
And you never told them to do that?
No, never. No.
That's something. Did you guys talk about that in class?
Yes, we did.
What did they say about that?
It made them feel important, and they said that was the best chapter, and they learned so much. They learned from each other.
Right.
And so, and I told them, I said, if you don't teach good, I'm going to give you the same test that I give if I taught.
Right.
So if you do not teach your one section well, the class is going to suffer.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask questions that you don't understand, you have to ask them. That's a part of their grade was not only just a presentation, but could they answer the questions?
Yeah.
They didn't have to be perfect, but they had to make a part of it. And even when I got my evaluation that year, they all wrote that on the evaluation.
That is so important to give students an opportunity to show what they can do.
Yes.
Not just to tell them to do something and make them do it, but to give them the freedom to go out and go figure out how to do this.
Yes.
When I was in college, we used to call this notion, the fact that they learned this material very well because they were teaching it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we called that, when I was in school, the grandma theorem. And it was, you don't know anything unless you can explain it to your grandmother.
I love it.
I was I majored in physics in as an undergrad, and so we were assuming that there weren't a whole lot of grandmothers out there who were physicists. There were a few, but not a whole lot. And that's the thing. And I remember, occasionally, like over Christmas, my grandmother asked, "What are you doing in school?" And I would tell her, and she would understand it. Yeah. So I knew that I was doing all right.
Yes. That's it.
Actually makes me remember another little story. My one of my teachers taught about electromagnetics, the light, and all this different stuff. And he tells this story about how he was spending an afternoon with his grandchildren, and they after he talked with them for a while, they ran in to find his wife, and she came in a few minutes later, and she was like, "These kids look like you have done something to them. What did you do?" He said, "Nothing." She's like, "Tell me what happened." And she said, "They asked me why the sky was blue." She said, "What did you do?" She said, he said, "I told them." And he explained to his grandkids all about all the diffraction and why the sun sets red and the sky is blue and all this kind of stuff, which I just thought was really really funny. He always had this grin on his face all the time.
Yes, that is awesome. Awesome.
Well, I think you've got another book in you with some of these great stories from teaching, and that'll only help your business as well. So I'm excited to hear about that sometime soon as well.
Okay.
I think you mentioned, have you also been doing some work with folks who are working on their dissertation or maybe a master's thesis as well?
Yes. Yes. I have been, some of my colleagues have called on me to mentor some young people. And it is, and I've done several. And it's interesting in that, I don't know how to say it, but how much students don't know about writing and the English language, but then I understand that we don't teach a lot of things in school anymore.
That's true.
And so I'm old school, so I know how to diagram a sentence. And
See, I was just going to bring that up. We were watching this Weird Al Yankovic video, this thing called Word Crimes. I don't know if you haven't seen it, look up Word Crimes on YouTube. It's really funny.
Okay.
But he shows diagramming sentences, and my son asked, "What is that?"
I know.
He's going to high school next year, and they have never showed him that at all.
No. So it's how do you write a sentence?
Yeah.
If you don't know what a subject is, and a noun and a pronoun and an adverb and a participle phrase or a dangling participle, how do you know how to write?
That's
But
right.
that is not taught in school. So and even though I was a science teacher, we always had to do one paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody had to do that. And it was a little bit depressing about the level of writing. But then I realized, and even though I was at the university level, I would get very upset with people who would say, "I don't know why these kids are coming out of high school and don't know how to write." Well, number one, you've never been in high school and tried to handle a class with students whose mind on everything but
that's right.
Your subject, and you're trying to keep them quiet, teach, stop Johnny from hitting Sue, stop the gangs from passing stuff, stop drugs, and it's a gamut of things that and that's another thing about when you're working with teachers. What do you do if you see drugs being passed, or what do you do if you see things, and some of these students are very confrontational, and they will tell you, "You can't make me do nothing."
Right.
I just tell them, "You know what? I just do what I do, because one thing about it, I am too cute to go to jail." So that won't be happening. But it's a lot of things to face, and I do hope and pray that students continue to want to teach.
Yeah, I think we'll always have those teachers out there, but it's a good thing that we have people like you to try to help them through some of those, particularly the early issues. And definitely, we are in the middle of COVID right now as we're recording this. We don't know what's going to happen with schools reopening in the fall. It's summertime right now. But eventually the schools will reopen. And even if they don't, there will still be teaching, and there will still be issues and concerns and things that they have to deal with. And so having someone who's been there before to help them through that is a great blessing. And I'm glad that we have you to do that. And that your doctoral journey has in some way empowered you to be able to do this, to put you in that position where people will look to you for this type of help and support.
That is absolutely true. And there were some people who told me that they just sailed through their doctoral journey and Their dissertation, they had no problems, and I went like, well, that is not my testimony. But I think it's, but the thing is, I am glad of what I had to go through, because what I can do is take what I learned to help somebody else.
Right. It's not the falling down that
yes.
defines us. It's the getting back up.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Ingram, if someone wanted to find you for help with any of these things that we've been talking about, to hear about your book later on, or any of the things we've been talking about, how would they best get in touch with you?
Okay, they can email me at dingram, DEINGRAM, 333 at gmail.com.
All right, we're going to get that in the notes, but say it to us one more time.
DEINGRAM 333 at gmail.com.
All right, that is awesome. Well, Dr. Ingram, thank you so much for being here with us today. I just want to remind everyone that this episode was brought to you by Dissertation Done. So if you are struggling through your dissertation process, wherever you are in the process, from just thinking about getting started on your dissertation to I've been stuck for a year and haven't moved on my dissertation, reach out to us at dissertationdone.com. We'll see if you're a good fit for our Fast Track Your Dissertation program, and we'll get you from here to graduation as soon as possible. So once again, Dr. Ingram, thank you so much for joining us here today. Please reach out to Dr. Ingram for more information about anything she talked about on the podcast. She's absolutely wonderful to work with, and we will see you here next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This has been An Unconventional Life. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe now to keep getting inspirational stories of unconventional lives as soon as they're released. Until then, go out and live your best unconventional life.